QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Forward contract to reduce risk from purchase overview. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are on the desktop. We have our QuickBooks program, which we're going to be opening up, setting up a new company file, and then we will work our practice problem within it, turning on the multiple currencies to do so. Before doing that, let's go on over to Excel to get an idea of what the problem will look like as we work through it. We will be working this step by step in Excel and then doing that same transactions in the QuickBooks system, Excel providing us some more transparency as we can see the actual journal entries and see them posted out to a trial balance. Then we go to QuickBooks and put it in there so it can help us to automate the process. We will be looking at a practice problem with a forward contract in it, as we've seen in some prior practice problems. But in the prior practice problems, we use the forward contract just for speculative purposes only. This time, we're going to be using it in more of a kind of a practical sense, in a normal type of business sense, more than just the speculation to gain on the forward contract. We're going to use it in order to lower some risk. As we do so, note that there's some different little tweaks to the accounting as to whether it's going to be designated as a hedge or not as a hedge. And if you want to take a look at more details on that, we have an advanced financial accounting course that gets into more of those details. But the concept is pretty straightforward for the purposes of this problem. The forward contract is not designated as a hedge. So here's what we have here. We're going to be purchasing the equipment. So we'll purchase a large piece of equipment, something that could be substantial or material for risk purposes in terms of the payable that would be resulting from it. We're going to put that on the books, and then we're going to have the payable that we're going to be paying in the future. We'll be paying it not in US dollars, but in a foreign currency, in our case, the Australian dollar. Now, that means that because we have this payable on the books and we did it for just a normal business process, meaning we purchased equipment, we got to pay in Australian dollars in the future, that results in risk. The risk related to the currency, because the currency, as of the point in time we make the purchase, can change as of the point in time we pay it. And if it does, it could have a negative impact. So if that's material, we might then want to say, okay, is there any way I can lower that risk? Well, we can use the tool that we had last time, the forward contract, to lower the risk by basically putting a forward contract that would have risk basically going the opposite way so that they would kind of hedge each other out. So that would mean that in this case, we have the accounts payable on the books that was a result that we're going to be paying in foreign currency. If we put the forward contract on the books so that we have a receivable that we will be receiving in the future in foreign currency, then the currency exchanges or the currency rate changes will affect these two components in basically opposite directions, and you can see how that would lower or mitigate the risk. So we're going to have the purchase that goes on the books for the property, plants, and equipment, resulting in a payable in foreign currency. Then we put the forward contract on the books, and the forward contract basically means that we're going to have, a forward contract that will be for 120 days. It'll result in both a receivable and a payable to the exchange broker. The receivable is something that we're going to be paying, something that we will be receiving in 120 days in the foreign currency. The payable is something that we're going to be putting on the books and simply paying in cash. Therefore, the payable will remain the same. No change over the 120 days. We're simply going to pay it at the end of the time period. The receivable, however, will vary on the books because it'll change with regards to the changes in the rates. And it will change and offset and result in basically the opposite kind of gain or loss that would result from the payable that we put on the books when we had the purchase, which basically means it's going to lower or mitigate the risk. So we're using this tool now that we see for speculative purposes in the past in order to lower the risk in like a normal business transaction. Okay, so if I minimize this screen, we're gonna open up our QuickBooks file. We'll set up another file within it. When we open up the QuickBooks file, it will open up to the prior company file that we had. I want to make sure I know where that company file is, then close that company file, and then set up our new company file. QuickBooks will just put it wherever QuickBooks puts it, and then we're going to locate it, find it, and then we're going to put it where we want it to be. So here we are in the prior company file. I'm going to close this company file out. Note, you don't have to close it. You could go to the File tab and just say New Company File, and it will then close the company file and set up the new company file. But I think it's useful to close it out oftentimes, especially if you do not know where this company file is, so that you can locate it and if you choose to, move it. So I'm going to say close the company file. That'll take us back into our intro screen where QuickBooks is open, but no file is open. This is the last file that was open. If I hover over it, then I get the mapping to where it is on the computer. You might want to, if you don't know where your prior company file is, you might want to take a screenshot of that and then locate it. And then you can move it if you want, as long as you're in this screen. QuickBooks is still open. Company file is not open. So you can cut and paste or move the company file if you so choose while QuickBooks is open to this screen. I'm going to set up a new company file, which we can do either down here or up top. I like doing it up top from the file dropdown. New company file. We're going to be setting up a new company file. And then I'm going to say that this is for someone else because we don't want it pulling over our information firm into it because it's just a practice file. So we don't need any other data in it. We just want the bare minimum so we can practice with it. So we're going to then set it up. And then we're going to set it up. I'm going to call it problem 3 for multiple currencies. And then the industry, I'm going to say is going to be other because I don't want to have any accounts over here. So we're going to have the bare minimum of accounts, which will help us to focus in on where we want to focus, which is the foreign currency type of accounts. And then the business type, I'm just going to keep it with that S corporation. It'll work with any kind of business type, but I'll just keep it with the S corporation. Then I'm just going to enter the email, which is the last asterisk area, last required field. We don't need anything on below, and because it's not required and we don't need it, I'm not going to do it. And we're going to put our email here and then continue. So now we're all set. It says we're going to close up these screens. So I'm going to close this up. No more purchasing of payroll or anything like that. Going to close this screen up. And that's what we have thus far. Now let's turn on the multiple currencies. Multiple currencies by going to the edit dropdown, down to the preferences. We want to be on the multiple currencies. Company preferences tab. I'm going to turn it on here. When we do, it's going to give us a warning. That warning says, before you do, read these important considerations. Once you turn on multiple currencies, you can't turn it off. That's only in this company file. That's why we're in a practice file. And you may want to make a backup if you want to put this into your company file just so you can test it out. Make sure you have the functionation or the functionality that you need still with this turned on. If you haven't backed up your company file recently, we'd recommend that you click no and create a backup before turning on multiple currencies. So that's a good recommendation. If you have your own company file, you want to make sure you back it up before you turn on the multiple currencies so that if there is a problem, you can restore the backup and then it will not be on after restored. So you won't be able to use Insights, Income Tracker, Bill Tracker, create batch invoices or batch delete void transactions. You won't be able to select multiple customers in the invoices for time and expenses window. You won't be able to exchange information with QuickBooks Mac or copy your company file to work with it. Online payment of invoices doesn't work with multiple currencies. So we're going to say, all right, I have read the conditions. I still want to do it. We're going to say the US dollar is going to be our home currency. So that's the currency we will be making our financial statements within. So I'm going to say, okay. It's going to close all the windows. And then, but we didn't open any windows yet, so that's not a big deal. But it'll close all the windows, and then we'll open up our windows once it wakes back up. All right, here it is. It has awoken again. So I'm going to maximize the home page over here. I'm going to go to the view drop down and say we want to have the open windows list open. Then let's take a look at the lists drop down where we have the currency lists now. Currency lists. So now we have all the currencies currently in the currency lists. They have the include inactive checked off. So we have all the currencies here with a little checkbox or an X if it's inactive. By default, if I uncheck the inactive items, we have the active items, and these are the default active items they have. Now, we need the Australian dollar, which is the AUD is the abbreviation. So I'm going to pick that up by going back, checking this off. I like to sort it by the code if I know the code, and then we're going to find the AUD, the Australian dollar, and then right-click on that item, and then I'm going to make it active, make that active. And then I'm going to uncheck down here. And so now we have the Australian dollar is active. Now, when we start to do the currency exchanges, if we're doing them in real time, we can then go to the current activities drop down or rise up. And then we're going to go down to the download the latest exchange rates. And that'll download the spot rates. Now remember, we're going to have a difference between the spot rates and the forward-looking rates when we're thinking about forward exchange contracts. So we want to keep that in mind, but that's a nice feature to have there to give us those rates. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to close this back out and make sure I have this file where I want it to be. So I'm going to close the company file, but not the QuickBooks program, then locate the company file. Because the program or the company file is closed, although the program is open, we can move the company file, cut and paste it to where we would like it to be. So I'm going to go to the file drop down. I'm going to say close the company file. That will take us back into our intro screen where we have all like the recently filed or recent files that we can open, but none of them are open at this point in time. And then I'm going to hover over this last one. So that's the one we want. And I'm going to locate it. I'm going to find it. And then we're going to go and put it where we want to put it. So here it is. Now I've located it here. Now I should have named it number 4. I'm going to rename it right now. I'm going to right click and rename and make it, this is like the 4th problem. So I'll say number 4. So I just renamed it to problem number 4. Now we can open it up. If I had closed the company file or the whole QuickBooks program, I could then simply double click on the QBW file, which would open up QuickBooks and would open up the company file within it. Or we can open up the QuickBooks and then locate the company file. Let's go ahead and do that and see if I can change the name in here too. So I've got it open here. Now if I moved the company file, I won't be able to simply double click on this item, but would have to then find the company file and then open it. So I'm going to go down to open or restore the company file. I just want to open it, not restore it, because it's already a QBW file. And then I'll locate it here. So we want the multiple currencies 4. That's the one I want to open. Now it should be in that first screen. Now it should know where it is at. And we should be able to just double click on it from that intro screen. And it should be able to open it up. I'm going to go to the company drop down. So the company drop down. And then I'm going to go down to my company drop down, and then my company. And I'd like to change this to problem 4 here. So I'm going to say edit this item. And let's make this prob 4. And then OK. And so there we have that. Let's do that one more time. If I go back into the edit field, I changed it here in the contact. I also want to change it in the legal information, legal name, prob 4. And then I'm going to say OK, and it should change the name up top here to problem number 4. So prob 4. So I'm going to close that out, and that's where we'll stop here, and then we will continue on next time.